everyone, welcome to Commander Pop Culture. If you like the video, be sure to subscribe so you'll be notified of future content. Welcome to my review of Commander Masters spoilers. As you can see, set was released August 4th, and the spoiler season starts July 11th. So there's 10 confirmed spoilers, and then there's 3 additional implied, and I'll go over that in a little bit and talk about the art and some of the stuff I like and what I don't like. First one, talk about Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. For those of you who don't know about this green card in particular, this is one of the best mono green commanders you could possibly play. Mostly for the card advantage and the absurd amount of mana that you can generate from her. Her and the price that she's currently going for, you get her at $15. And the next card that is getting a similar full art treatment is the Ur-Dragon. You can get a copy of this for $50. It's also got the weird treatment where it's kind of got that pastel background and then they have the main image. I wonder why the design teams decide to go with this kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, to me they did a lot of work putting in the detail of the image itself, and then to just kind of go with a blank background just seems a little lame. Like, I would want this on a card. Like, I don't know, you spoil all the good stuff on the box art and you leave the thing that actually matters with this. Not that I can't appreciate the main image of the card. I just think they are cutting corners and might be not commissioning artists to do the full image. And that's why we get this pastel color. Although it could be to enhance the image of the card, but I don't know. I feel like if you're going to have something borderless, it's to increase the image size so you could tell a bigger story versus than what you'd tell in a little tiny square box. And
don't be a...
they're using the space just to fill it with empty color. I don't know. It's kind of disappointing. So the widescreen stretched versions, I absolutely hate. The extended arts of cards, it just kind of like, it warps the image and stretches it out wider. So I just feel like it's lazy. And that's, if I don't like that, then it kind of makes sense why I don't like these kind of like full arts. Moving on. They specifically reminded me of this secret lair of Crocodile Jackson's Monstrous Menagerie. Obviously, this secret there is a little more cartoony in terms of style, because the previous two, they definitely looked increasingly better detailed, but they share the same like pastel blank background. So I don't know what the sales of these were, but I imagine they were popular. Some of these were really strong cards. Like, I know one of them's Temur Sabertooth and Tarmogoyf, and actually I could read it right there. Pathbreaker Ibex, Winding Constrictor, Managorger Hydra. Oh, this is actually Ravenous Chupacabra. For some reason I thought it was Goyf. Yeah, I'd say all those are playable in Commander. Moving on, Personal Tutor is getting a reprint. The last time this was printed was Portal, and it's going for like $60. What I like about Commander Masters or the Master sets is they always pick some really obscure cards to reprint, and this is no exception to that rule. It's expensive because of how little it's been printed, but since the theme of reprinting things and printing sets in general, there's like 4 or 5 different versions of everything. There's the fuller version, and then there's going to be an etched version, and then there's going to be the regular version. You could count them right here. There's 3 different versions that you could get. I don't expect the $60 price tag to hold. Like, I think when I checked earlier today, it was at $63, and now it's down to $57, so it's already lost $6 in value. And as we creep along through the month, that's going to be kind of the theme for all these cards to lose value. Next up, we got Jewel Lotus. You can pick up a copy for $75. This is the full art version that I personally like. You could get an elevated version. Like the foiling is raised off the card, kind of like what they did with All Will Be One, only there's more color to it, so that's kind of nice. I don't really care so much about the elevation to the card, mostly because I sleeve everything up and I don't really get the opportunity to, appreciate that aspect of the card. I feel like having elevation to the card it might be aesthetically pleasing for blind people.
Wow, it's so... Oh my god! Oh, Christ!
But like, I don't know why batter to anybody to have an elevation of anything to a card. The image is awesome. That's all I care about. So the cheaper, fuller version is what I'm probably going to be going for. Disrupt Decorum. You can get this for 50 cents. So I don't expect this fuller version to go much more than $5 based on that price alone. As you can tell, this is clearly a leak rather than a professional intended release. We don't know how many different versions it's going to get, but basically everything is getting at least minimally 3 versions of it. That's the reason why I don't expect even the borderless version to be more than $5. Capture Jin Zhao. I own a copy of this, actually. I own the Judge promo one, which is $123. The Portal 3 Kingdoms one is even rare, $800 plus. This is among 3 extra turn spells that don't exile themselves for the low price of 5 CMC. For the fact that you get an extra turn, it's low in CMC, and it doesn't exile itself, it's a highly coveted extra turn spell. Mostly because the fact that you could get it back from your graveyard can break the game. If you combo this with things like Archaeomancer, you could flicker Archaeomancer, you could take infinite turns and win the game, which is something I do in my Brago deck. Moving on. This is among the 40 new cards that are coming in the commander decks. This is the face of the commander deck itself. It's a colorless deck. There's some things I dislike about it. One of the things being is that colorless has the smallest card pool. For those of you that never have played a colorless deck, it can be incredibly inconsistent. Like, I think the most consistent deck I've ever played that was colorless was probably Kozilek the Great Distortion. Mostly because you do the habit of like filling your deck with a bunch of rocks, dump your hand, slam the Kozilek, then refill your hand, and then you have a lethal attacker because he's a 12/12 with Menace. It only takes 2 whacks to finish the job. And you could counter stuff with his activated ability, which I never really took advantage of. I honestly welcomed people killing my that commander because you just rinse, wash, and repeat by dumping your hand and refilling it. I didn't run any like protection spells in that deck, but I digress. We're talking about Zuladoc here. He himself is 6, so it can't trigger off himself. Whenever you cast a colorless spell with 7 mana or greater, they cascade twice. So it really incentivizes you to run a high curve, and you basically suffer in the beginning of the game, so you can make a rubber band effect and I guess snap yourself back into the game once you get that cascade trigger. It's just incredibly risky.
It's a trap!
I think this commander is a bit of a bait build. Something that you can compare this to is the I forget his name, but it's the Simic Naga that costs 5, and whenever you cast something that's 6 or greater, it cascades 1 time. The difference between that Naga and this guy is the Naga is in 2 additional colors, and albeit Simic is the best in the business at drawing your deck and playing your deck. So you can kind of afford to take turns off because eventually you're just going to steal the game away no matter what, if the game goes on long enough. Zuladoc, you don't have a whole lot of options to protect him. You don't have a lot of interaction in your deck. And the removal is just incredibly efficient. Like, you're going to invest 6 mana plus to play him, and then you're going to invest 7 mana plus to chase those cascade triggers. I honestly believe that will happen very rarely. I think this card is kind of crappy. It has an inflated price tag because, as you can see, it's the cheapest version, which is this one. Is going for $44.95. Stores are selling cards so they can make an easy buck. It's nothing personal. It's just business. Some people that don't really care about evaluations or have money to throw around, they'll pay that price. But for everyone else that doesn't have a lot of money, that is like everybody else, that's an outlandish price for a card like this that will be incredibly hard to win games with, I think. Enough about that. People can agree, disagree in the comments. Maybe my thoughts are unjust. I'd like to hear counter arguments about it. Anaxia, Hand of Erebos. Menace gives other enchantment creatures menace. When it enters or attacks, exile a non-aura enchantment from your graveyard and create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 3/3 black zombie creature in addition to its other type. So again, overpriced of $30. Just wait. Why would anybody pay $30 for a single card when you could buy the whole deck? But stores that possess the card, they're allowed to make whatever prices they want. So I've seen people ask how they would build this card, particularly in like Facebook and Reddit groups. If you're watching this and you're curious about this card and you're not sure where to start, I think white and black are particularly known to be quite debilitative stacks enchantments. And not only if people answer them, you get to reanimate them and beat them to death as they become 3/3 zombies. So that's a unique way of playing it, and that's how I build it personally. Commodore Guff. This is a Jeskai Planeswalkers Super Friends kind of commander, because at your end step you get to put an additional loyalty counter on another Planeswalker, and then his +1 is he makes a wizard that Planeswalkers that make bodies as a uptick is always super powerful, and then it's also a mana dork to help you cast more Planeswalkers. So that's pretty sweet. So -3 is you draw X cards. He deals X damage to each opponent, and then X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. So it'd be an impressive feat to have a lot of Planeswalkers in play and pull significant cards off of this and do a lot of damage. People get more utility out of his +1 more than the -3. I think people would be -3ing as like a last resort when their hands are empty. They have nothing else better to do, because just making the body protect yourself is always better. I rarely expect this card to actually kill someone on that -3 trigger until the game is practically over at that point. Just a stiff breeze would kill someone. The drawing additional cards is nice. No price point set for this yet. The Jeskai has such a competitive space for commanders. I don't see this card being too terribly expensive. Like, there's just so many. I think the premier ones is Narset and Elsha the Infinite. Those are probably the two best that you could play. And Commodore Gruff.
Lock your doors. That's an easy way to take a bite out of crime.
Does not come close. And even in Jeskai colors, in terms of really great Super Friends commanders, I think the best one is actually probably Promonicon, the wall that makes it so people can only attack certain directions. So you either pick left or right, and then the person to that direction can only attack you. So you literally close the window of attackers to a very small amount. And he's a really good pillow fort. If you're interested in building Super Friends, I'd recommend trying out that wall over Commodore Guff here. Sliver Gravemother. This is part of the commander deck that has the biggest price point because slivers are popular. This version is going for $61. It's hard for me to acknowledge these price points because the set booster and in the collector boxes, they're going to be sticking these extended borders and these etches into those products. So there's going to be a lot of copies floating around. And for what it does, it's quite significant. I guess the legendary rule doesn't apply. So like, I imagine if you encore the one that's basically a coat of arms, pretty sure that's enough power to kill everybody in the table. Heck, even encoring a muscle sliver might be enough to kill everybody at the table. I think giving slivers encore is a significant ability. You'll have some explosive turns. Sliver Gravemother herself has encore, so you could string together an even stronger explosive turn. Most sliver decks kind of devolve into, if you can't finish the job via combat, they have a lot of combos revolving around tutors for slivers, and they really depend on Gemhide Sliver or Mana West Sliver, so you can pay into its search cost, or in combo with Sliver Queen, so you can make infinite amount of tokens and kill people that way. And Sliver Gravemother basically gives you, I guess, backup for if those plans don't work out, because you could reanimate them out of your graveyard for the turn, and reanimating 3 copies is probably enough to finish the table of whatever it is that you encore out of your graveyard. Out of the 4 commanders that were showcased in the boxes, this one's by far the strongest, not just because it's slivers, but because you have access to 5 colors, and the ability is just significantly better than the other 3 cards put together. So these are the sealed products from Commander Masters that are currently on pre-sale. They're incredibly expensive, and I think the reason for it being is Universes Beyond Lord of the Rings. The collector boxes are still going for over $400. The packs are still going for $40, despite the One Ring being found. And if you don't know that, then you're kind of cracking packs, pursuing a dream that is unattainable. You could still get the serialized Soul Rings and the Surge foils, the odds of you making up the prices of these sealed products is highly unlikely. Even the set boosters and the bundles, they might be more fairly priced. The odds of you covering the cost is still not that great. I think the reason why it's not falling as hard as it should be is because the popularity of Lord of the Rings. With that being said, people are still paying these prices to get these products. And if you look at these, the Commander Masters, as ridiculously priced as they are, sales are still happening. Mostly because I think the average consumer is not the brightest. The Commander Masters collector boxes only come with 4 packs. Thus, the ongoing price average of the packs is like $55 in change. It's insane. I don't know who in their right mind would pay that much for a single pack of cards, but people are. And for not a good reason, because maybe they don't know any better that the collector boxes only come in with 4 packs, or they don't know better that there are no serialized cards in this set. There is no Surge foils in this set. They just assume because of what happened in the previous set that everything's the same. Then again, Wizards is not required to advertise that information either. You have to dig deep and look for that stuff in this information, the product details. But the average person is kind of laissez-faire with their money, so they don't know. Or I assume they don't know. Since I'm seeing sales at its current prices, I just assume you don't know any better, because it's a bad idea to be paying this price for reprints. That's mostly what the set is. There's 233 cards in this set, and 40 of them are mechanically unique. When you have a reprint of a card, it causes everything to go down. Even in the most recent printing does this. Like, why pay an extra $10 to $20 for a reprint when you could get iterations from its past for cheaper? So it causes everything to equalize all across the board. Even the fancy versions that we've discussed, the borderless ones, they also decrease in value to match the other stuff. There'll be a few bucks more, but it won't be incredibly more expensive. I think the only reason why stores are setting these ridiculous pre-sale prices is because of how well Universes Beyond Lord of the Rings is going. If they could make sales at that price, then what's to stop them to think that charging at this amount is not okay? There isn't a reason. I just think it's a little predatory. They're just taking advantage of people who don't know. To talk about the Commander decks, there's going to be a lot of reprints in them, and not all of them are spectacular. Obviously, Guff was probably the weakest, but I would make the argument that the Enchantress kind of deck is more powerful than the colorless deck by a large margin. I'd have to see the other cards for me to agree with the pricing of these two, but I think the colorless Commander deck is it's a bait. And I think you'll have a lot of turns just sitting around doing nothing, because disrupting you is easy and the game is just getting faster. At least if you play the Enduring Enchantments deck and you play it like I suggested, going with stacks enchantments, you'll prolong it a considerable amount of time until you win. And that's basically the best ways to be playing competitive Magic right now. Is either you want to win the game as fast as possible, or you want to drag it out
Forever. Forever.
Yeah, I think the prices of the Commander decks are insane for what they are, because each deck only contains 10 unique cards in each, which is a bit of a letdown for me because I'm not a new player. I think a lot of players like me share that kind of sentiment, or they don't know what's actually in these boxes. Because those 10 unique cards in each deck you could get in the set boosters or the collector boxes. So like, I'd rather go hunting for singles that way than buy these products or these sealed products altogether, because I have all the cards that this set's reprinting. Like, if I go for anything from sets anymore, it's particularly strong and I don't own it, or there's a printing that's particularly better than its previous iteration. I normally go for the full arts, but since the full arts look like this and I feel conflicted about it, I don't know if I will go for them this time around, because I like the image itself. I just hate the surrounding space because I think it's a waste. Artistically, I just don't like it. I could hear my commercial art teacher harp to me always that every piece of your canvas should be utilized to its max potential. And I just feel like the folks at Wizards are making the decisions that aren't artistically sound.
I must express myself. If you don't let me gut out this house and make it my own, I will go insane and I will take you with me!
I think it's just easier to print it like that, and that's why they do it. Now for the unconfirmed things, you can infer, because their faces are on the products itself. We got Ghoul Collar Gisa, we got Zakama, and then we have Avacyn, the OG version. The one gives all your permanents indestructible. Ghoul Collar Gisa goes for $2. That'd be a dud of a mythic if you drew that out of your packs. I would be pissed if I bought a premium product and had this card staring back at me in the face. Zakama isn't as bad, but it's still on the cheaper side. You get a copy for $17. Zakama is one of my all-time favorites. I featured him on one of my channel. There's a lot of combos with him because he untaps all of your lands when you cast him, and he's a pretty brutal mana sink. Normally when people cast this guy and he hits the table, you have to respond to the untap trigger, because if you don't, your whole board's going to disappear. So he's a great equalizer. He's good for taking turns off and snapping that rubber band like I was talking about earlier, because it's guaranteed with his activated abilities. Avacyn, however, is the bigger ticket card. The next cheapest you get her for is $48. Although I already have this borderless version of hers, so I don't really care that much about her getting reprinted. And if she gets the same treatment as this stuff, then I'm especially annoyed. Like, when you look at this card, you see a story, right? Those are the first 13 spoilers of the 233 cards total. Have a good night.